Over the last couple of weeks, I've been testing out Novamira Pro, using it in various different use cases. I've documented some of this in previous videos, but today I want to go over some of the things that I've been using it for over the last week or so. These are kind of real-world use cases that may open up some ideas for you when you're looking to use something like Novamira to use AI inside your website design builds. Now, first of all, let's quickly say that when it comes to the design side of things, I don't think any AI tool right now does a great job. But there are so many use cases outside of the design that maybe you haven't looked at, because most of the videos you see online are all about like how you can make a $10,000 website using AI and sell those till the cows come home. We all know the reality of that is bullshit, but there are so many use cases outside of that BS that are really useful. So let me show you some of the things that I've done. Before we do though, I want to show you how best to make sure you set up Novamira to get better results. Now, once you've installed Novamira, come over into the memory and instructions setting, and inside there, let's take a little bit of time to look at what's going on here and why it's important. So we've got custom instructions. This is where you set up rules that you want Novamira to adhere to when you're working on a project. Now, what you will find is that with any AI tool, and when I refer to Novamira, I'm not specifically talking about that platform. I'm kind of talking about this in the context of being connected to Claude AI or Codex or something like that. So kind of think of these as interchangeable terms. So the custom instructions are basically rules that you want it to adhere to, so you don't have to tell it time and time again to do the same thing. So for example, because I'm creating custom post types with meta fields, taxonomies, and so on, I want to use ACF every single time. I don't want to have this using custom instructions and so on, and creating custom PHP functions or those kinds of things, which is what it generally tends to try and do. So I'm just telling it, when ACF or ACF Pro is installed, always use that instead of using native WordPress functions for creating custom function to create custom post types, meta fields, taxonomies, etc. Then we've got things like when designing any content, ensure that you always use the CSS variables already added to the site's design system, so it doesn't start adding in arbitrary values. It uses what you've created to give flexibility. Always use native bricks features and functions in favor of creating custom functions in Novamira Sandbox. Fully test before releasing. So in other words, when you want to do something inside bricks, it will often sort of fall back and try to create HTML code, just dump that into the HTML element, whereas you want this to actually use native bricks functions. This gives you flexibility when it comes to any design work or creation work. Then, for example, I'm using Happy Files to manage my media, so I'm telling it whenever you add media, always try to organize that content into the relevant folders I've created using Happy Files Pro, which is what it tends to do now because I've told it to. The other thing as well is you'll notice underneath we've got memory. Now, memory comes in multiple different forms. You've got memory that you've told the AI to do specifically, and then you've got ones that this kind of picks up on its own. So these are kind of done in the background. You can edit these, and if you open it up, it's basically just like an MD file, a markdown file that has custom instructions included in it. So it tells us like the metadata import, what's been completed, and so on. So these are just memories that it has from things I've told it to do with the AI. So if you are working on multiple different development environments, so I'm using one in my studio now that has a different version of Codex installed compared to what I've got in my home office, these are things you can make sure that are kind of consistent between both. So you can edit these, you can delete them, all manner of different things. So you have full control over it. But make sure that you are always updating, creating custom instruction sets. You may have something that's global you want to use on every project. You may have ones that are specific to the project you're working on, or have a hybrid of both. Make sure you have those things set up because they are incredibly important and will save you a bunch of tokens, especially if you're on Claude, where tokens can get quite expensive and you can eat through them really quickly. It makes sense to have these in place. So make sure you use them and take advantage of them. The next thing I want to draw your attention to is the sandbox. Now, as I said a little earlier in this video, generally what Novamira or the AI tries to do is it creates its own PHP files that do certain things. So for example, let's say I wanted to have additional columns inside my post section, like the featured image, maybe remove things like the comments and the date it was added and various different things. Well, by default, this will create a custom function and create a sandbox file for it. It uses this to kind of test things out and sideline them away from making changes to the actual WordPress install itself, like kind of snippets and things. Problem with this is it's kind of then tied into Novamira. So I don't always want it to do that. I prefer to have these in my own snippets plugin. So you can either tell it, if it does this, to move that content over to whatever snippets plugin you're using. I'm using Fluent Snippets because I like the fact it just keeps text files. It doesn't inject anything into the database, but it's up to you how you want to do it. Now, you could do this inside the memory instructions. So it's up to you if you want to add it in there. But you'll notice if I come into my Fluent Snippets, I have 3 snippets inside here, so I have full control over where they are. I could easily control whether these are only available on the front end, the back end, those kinds of things. I can enable, disable, all those kinds of good things. I have control over that in an environment that I'm used to working with. So, for example, I've got this bricks duration formatter. This just basically converts a total amount of seconds into minutes and seconds, and I can use a simple function inside my designs, my templates, to reference this custom function. But I want this to be inside my Fluent Snippets. So I've told it now that whenever you create something like this, once it's tested and confirmed to be working with no side effects, you move that content out of the sandbox, create a new code snippet for it, and add that function into the code snippets for me. Then I have full control. And obviously I can share these then. If I wanted to use this on another project, I can easily share this and use it in other projects. It's a nice, simple way of working. So it's another little tip that you may find is incredibly useful to allow you to disable Novamira once you finish doing what you want to do. So if you don't want to have it running, having things inside the sandbox means you're reliant upon it. Moving them out into a code snippet means that those are self-contained little snippets of code. So you could disable and or remove Novamira and still have those custom functions as part of your site and make them shareable across multiple sites. So again, another nice little way of making sure you work effectively and efficiently. So let's jump into my post section. Let me show you how I've used this custom function or created it to do various different things. Now, obviously, you could easily use a third-party tool to do this, like ASE or any of those kinds of tools, but it's another plugin to install and maintain with additional features you may not want to add in. This gives me control to use AI to do simple things that are not going to have a major impact. I'm not creating additional plugins. I'm just tweaking the dashboard side of things. But what I've got here is I've asked it to put in the featured image to add a new column in. You can see we've got difficulty and software. We've added those in. Duration, which is a custom field that I've got as part of ACF. Then I've got the video ID. I'll explain how this works and what I've done with this in a moment. But I've customized this. Then if we come into a complete custom post type, like my recommended tools, you'll see inside there, we've got the featured image again, the title, the tool type, a discount code, discount amount, and whether it's featured. And if you come into the quick edit, inside here, you can see I can add in the discount code, discount amount, set this to be a featured product. All those things are done custom through Novamira and Codex, added into a custom function, saved as a custom code snippet. Lots of useful things. Coming back into my post, for example, I've got some custom filter options across the top. So all dates and all categories, that's standard, but durations is not standard. So I can filter based upon how long my videos are. I can check out anything that has a missing video ID. So let me quickly talk about what that video ID is and how that's important. Now, this is the development environment for me moving the WPTuts website over from a Blocksy-based website over to Bricks, so I've got full control. Now, with that, I've got over 800 posts, and the way the data was actually created isn't necessarily lending itself to making that migration easy. Getting the content over was pretty straightforward. However, for the video, the way I've had that sort of working so far is I've got a plugin in the current WordPress installed for WPTuts that looks at my YouTube channel, and whenever new content is added, it will pull that over, create a new post, add all the relevant information in, and then it will grab the URL for the video, inject that into the template, so I don't have easy access to that information as part of my posts. I need that information to move over to Bricks. So what I've done is I've imported the information in, then I've used a tool inside YouTube to download my videos, which gives me the video ID and the link and all those kinds of things. And then I got that to match up the data for the post title, pull in the video ID, and also create a unique link that has the URL for the video and the ID tagged at the end. Let me show what I'm talking about. If I come into my post, let's open this first one up. You'll see inside there, I've got video ID and I've got the YouTube URL. This has been pulled into custom fields. The data's been combined, it's been checked, and it's pulled that data inside here for me, added that in, all been done via Novamira and Codex. I haven't had to do that. This has saved me literally a ton of time marrying everything up, making sure that everything is connected and working. That in itself was worthwhile doing what I wanted to do. However, it's just made my life considerably easier managing that data import process, matching data that wasn't easily available from a different source, making sure those two things are pulled together, and now everything is working. So now, if I come over into, for example, Bricks and open one of these videos up, there's the video embedded, because this is how we have to do it as part of Bricks with their media player. It just wants the ID, it doesn't want the full URL. Well, that's been stored in the database, pulling that information in, and all the data has been pulled in for me. Now, on the existing WPTuts website, I've got a recommended tools section. I didn't want to have to go through and copy all this data over and mess about. And you'll notice that I've only got like 1 or 2 logos on there, and obviously things need to be updated, and I wanted to sort of bring this over. And I need to create a custom post type, create a custom taxonomy, create all the different groupings for that, link everything together, then create a template, then have all of that work done. Now, it's nothing complicated there, but it is something that's time consuming. Plus, I needed to have a nested loop. So we've got a loop that loops through the WordPress page builders, plugins, and so on, and then has a loop inside there, again, which isn't a difficult thing to do, but all these things take time. Then migrate the data over, then link it up, then add all the relevant, you get the idea how this kind of could be time consuming. So instead, I just turned to Novamira and asked that to do it. And this is what I ended up with. If you take a look underneath, there's our nested loop. So our WordPress page builders, Gutenberg block type plugins, WordPress themes, WordPress add-ons. So all of that's been pulled in, which is pretty cool. It created the template, it applied the conditions for me. It actually built out the template. I didn't even ask it to do it and fill the data out inside there, pulled all that in. The only thing that it did originally was it didn't do the nested loop. I should have told it to do that. It just created multiple different loops, which wasn't an effective way of working. But one quick instruction telling them what to do went away and did that for me. Then also set these little pills up so I can have a sort of highly recommended or featured. I just flick a little checkbox, then it'll pull that in, it'll mark that off, it'll highlight it. They're all organized inside here. You can click on any of these, it'll take you over to the relevant link that's been added in there. If there's any discount codes, it'll show you the discount code and the discount amount. Again, all of this data was pulled over for me. So it's built the page out, pulled the data in. I asked it to go and find the logos for me. So it just went off, found the logos, downloaded those, added them to my media library, organized them into the relevant happy files folder. All that was done for me. Super simple, quick and easy. Because it's done it once, now it'll automatically start doing that and putting that data into the relevant folders for me. And if you add an instruction in, it'll do it based upon that instruction. So that's all pretty cool. Now, this is where it gets even cooler. I took out some of what I would consider to be plugins and tools and things that I don't recommend so much anymore because I just don't use them. So I can't recommend something I don't actually use. But there was a bunch of ones I didn't include inside here. So I literally just gave Novamira a list of what I wanted, told it to go and find the content, write a little description, grab the logo for me, grab the URL, add all that information in, and organize everything in the relevant way. So it's done all that for me. So it's added in ACF, Bricks Extras, Core Framework, Fluent Community, and Fluent CRM. Grab the logos. There's a couple of logos I wasn't happy with, so I asked it to go and find the icon logos, like this one and this one. Went away and did that, grabbed the SVGs for me as the preferred one, organized those into the relevant folder, job done. Really took a couple of minutes and I got off and did something else. So grabbing data and pulling that in is super quick and easy. So it's another use case. If you are migrating a client's site over and you don't want to have to migrate all the data in multiple different ways, as long as that data is accessible, you can use like Novamira and Codex to pull in that data and do all the heavy lifting for you. So another way in which you can use it. Now, one of the things I really like about what you can do with Novamira is it's aware of what plugins you have installed. So I've got SEOPress, only the free version in this instance, installed. And I've already asked it to go and start looking at the content, the titles and so on, and creating SEO optimized meta titles, meta tags, or meta descriptions, I should say. Also then pulling the data in to create a version for X and for Facebook, all part of what you can do inside SEOPress. I've also gone in and started using just normal ChatGPT to take the transcript for any video and then create a post around it based upon that transcript in the tone of voice that I've trained it on based upon my previous transcript. So it sounds like me. I don't need to do this because I'm not writing something very detailed. I'm writing about what I've covered in the video, but I want something that will be picked up by the search engines, by AI and so on, which helps the site rank. So for example, if we come in here, let's just close this down. You can see we have the full article all written out based upon my transcript and what I've included in that transcript. A little bit of tidying up to make sure everything looks good, and I'd probably come back in, add a couple of images in, because obviously that's not something I think you could do very easily using AI, but you know, there's options here to do that kind of thing. Let's come into Codex, and from here, I'm going to tell it what I want to do. So I just said it, I want you to read the content, the first post, then based on that, use SEOPress and create an SEO optimized meta title and meta description for the post. Also create more detailed social media versions using the relevant SEOPress options. So let's send off to go and do that. And I think that's the thing we need to sort of consider here, is that you can do a lot of things a lot faster and leverage the power of good quality AI, especially if you're getting it to go and look at what you've already got created and use that as the basis of reference. This is, again, something that if you've got a new client coming on board, these are all additional services that you can offer them as part of your overall package. And I know people are sort of saying like, but AI is going to kill web designers and all those kinds of things. Let's be brutally honest about it. That's not the case. If that was the case, then we would have lost this 2 years ago when AI started making a sort of a name for itself. It's going to enhance what people like you and I can offer. We can work smarter, we can work faster, we can offer more to our clients, and we could potentially charge them more. Can they look at this and go, you're using AI, I could do this myself? At which point you go, you absolutely could do. If you want to go and do it, go and do it. No problem at all. The fact is, most business people want to spend time on their business. They don't want to spend time learning AI, building websites, and cocking about with all those different things. So just remember that when you're told that your job is going to be obsolete in the next 6 months. They said that 2 years ago, and we're all pretty much still here. Okay, so after 41 seconds, it's basically gone. Updated the latest published post, which is the Why Web Designers Should Seriously Consider Affinity, which is the right post. Even going to link this, we can check it out. So it's added SEO meta title, meta description, Facebook Open Graph title, description, and image, and a Twitter X title, description, and image as well. Let's go and take a look. So here's our post. There's the right one as well. Why Web Designers Should Seriously Consider Affinity. Now it's free. Let's go to the SEO. Let's load the data. There we go. Affinity is free. Why web designers should use it. There's your description. If we come over into social, you can see there's our longer versions of it with our image and everything all set up and configured for us. Now, you obviously could go a lot further than this. This is just one simple example of how this can work. But like I say, if you're doing this for 50 different posts or pages, it just saves you a bunch of time. And it's probably going to do a decent job. If you're like me, you hate doing SEO titles and things. I've never been particularly great at it. So it's going to do a better job than I'm going to do. If you're into SEO and you're very good at it, you may want to do it manually. But it's another way in which you can handle things. And if you want to be very specific how it works, you can tell it. You can put instructions in there on how to do it. But this is just an example of some ways in which I've been using Novamira over the last couple of weeks, and it's saved me a boatload of time. Now let me put it over to you. I would love to know how you're leveraging the power of AI in your everyday life. If you're an agency, a freelancer, or just someone building their own website for fun, how are you using AI? Have you tried Novamira Pro? What are your thoughts on it? But whatever tools you're using, share your experience down in the comments section down below, because I would love to know how you use it. As always, all applicable links for this and everything else covered in the video are in the description down below. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.